Hi, this is Ms. Sherbin, and this video is going over the reading or the guided instruction for Lesson 20, Sources of Variation, and this is found on page 104. Feel free to pause if you need to find this in your book. If not, let's get started. Just remember you can pause at any time if you need to catch up or rewind if you need to rehear or rethink about something I said. All right, so sources of variation. Variation means differences, how things vary. And what they mean by sources of variation, they're talking about different organisms, all living things. Why are they different from one another? How did a giraffe become different than a turtle? How did a zebra develop stripes? Those type of amazing questions that we've been asking. The I can statement is you can understand how variations arise in a species. You can understand how differences come about in living things, is another way to say it. So let's get down to vocabulary. And the four big words that are talked about a lot in this reading are mutation, natural selection, selective breeding, and genetic engineering. A mutation is a change in a gene or chromosome. All right? In other words, it's a change in the DNA. It can cause a different trait. Natural selection is a process by which helpful traits are passed on and harmful traits are not. This is in other words called survival of the fittest. Now, the next two, selective breeding and genetic engineering, are different in two key ways, okay? Selective breeding and genetic engineering are different than natural selection because instead of nature selecting the traits, humans do. And one is done by choosing who mates with who, and one is actually done by manipulating the DNA. So let's read. In selective breeding, only the organism with certain traits are allowed to reproduce. In genetic engineering, genes from one organism are inserted into the DNA of another organism. So again, natural selection happens in nature, and selective breeding and genetic engineering happen with human intervention. All right, my computer's freezing. Feel free to write down this as we continue and I wait for this to stop. All right. Directions. Read the following information. Not all people look the same. People have a variety of traits. Two of sources of this variety are mutation and sexual reproduction. That's important. Mutations are random changes in genes or chromosomes. Genes must carry out instructions for an organism's trait. A mutation can change those instructions and by doing so, change traits. Most mutations make it hard for an organism to survive and are unlikely to be passed on. Some mutations make an organism better adapted for survival. Other mutations are harmless. So basically what this one's saying is that mutations change what is in the traits. Some make it easier to survive, some make it more harder. So for example, the giraffe had a mutation in its neck to make it longer. And that made it easier to get more leaves from the top of the trees. There may have been another common ancestor of giraffe that made its neck much shorter and therefore didn't have much food, so it couldn't eat enough to reproduce and survive. Now I'm here. Sexual reproduction is another source of variation. In sexual reproduction, each parent passes on some of his traits to an offspring. This is why a person looks like a little like each parent. Sexual reproduction produces unique combination of traits in each person. We talked a little bit about that, so half the genes from mom, half the genes from dad. Some traits make it hard for an organism to survive in its environment. These traits are unlikely to be passed on. Other traits help an organism to survive in its environment. These traits are more likely to be passed on. So basically what this reading just said is that a change in DNA is either caused by a mutation or sexual reproduction. Helpful traits get passed on to the next generation, and harmful traits are not passed on. Next page. As a result, this process is called natural selection. Some traits may disappear and others may become common. After many generations, the organism and population may be very different than their ancestors. So natural selection causes organisms to be different than their ancestors. Humans can deliberately affect the traits of other organisms. By allowing only some plants or animals to breed, humans can decide which traits are passed on. This process is called selective breeding. Many differences in the variety of dogs are a result of selective breeding. Many crops and livestock have also been selectively bred. Humans can also directly change the traits of an organism through genetic engineering. In this process, genes from one organism are transferred into the DNA of another organism. This method has been used to develop bacteria that can produce human insulin needed by the people with diabetes. So my words were defined up here. Selective breeding is by only allowing some plants and animals to breed. Alright, and genetic engineering is when humans can directly change it. It's when genes from one organism are transferred into a DNA of another organism. Alright, so let's go through the guided questions. So the guided questions, what is a mutation? So I have two places where I can find this. First, I can find this in my definitions, but I can also find it here. Mutations are random changes in genes or chromosomes. And remember, genes carry instructions for an organism's trait. So I'm going to be a little bit more comprehensive. I'm going to say that mutations are a change in a gene, are a random change in a gene that can cause, not always, that can cause a change in an organism's traits. So mutations are random. Okay, next page. What is the end result of natural selection? So over here we read that, change my color a little bit. After many generations, the organism and population may be different from their ancestors. So natural selection takes a really long time. An end result is that organisms are different than their common ancestor. So I can copy this sentence over here, or I can put in my own words, which I'm going to try. Natural, and turn the question around. The end result of natural selection is that organisms in a population have different traits than their ancestors. So for example, there is probably a common ancestor of a giraffe that has a shorter neck. Now, remember, natural selection is caused by survival of the fittest. When one animal gets a mutation or a different trait through sexual reproduction, and it passes that trait on, or does not pass that trait on, depending on if it was helpful or harmful. Alright, what is selective breeding? So selective breeding is when humans decide which organism breeds with the other. So if you look right here, I found the bold word. This process is called selective breeding. So this is telling me that the definition is before the bold word. Humans can deliberately affect the traits of other organisms. By allowing only some plants and animals to breed, humans can decide which traits are passed on. So, selective breeding is when humans decide, I'm going to check my spelling, decide, which organisms breed to get certain traits in the next generation. Let me fix that so you can see it. I may not be able to write all that, but selective breeding is when humans decide which organisms breed to get certain traits in the next generation. I think a lot about farming when I think about this. And this is not random. Selective breeding is not random. Neither is genetic engineering. So what is genetic engineering? So I find my bold word, genetic engineering. I read the sentence. Human can also directly change the traits of an organism through genetic engineering. That's not the definition. So I look at the sentence before, many crops and livestock have been selectively bred. Nope. I read the sentence after. In this process, genetic engineering. In this process, genes from one organism are transferred into the DNA of another organism. So it's when genetic engineering is when humans directly change the traits of an organism. See, I'm combining the up here and down here by transferring, by taking DNA from one organism and transferring it into the DNA of another organism. Okay, so I hope this was helpful. Now it's time for you to answer all the questions, continuing on the next 2 pages after this, and I will have an answer video after the due date. Okay, so go answer the questions now. I don't think that there's any crazy vocabulary in here, except I do believe the words domesticated appear in the multiple choice. Domesticated means when animals are raised by humans, they're tame, and descendants are relatives from past ancestors. And I think that is almost all of it. I don't think there's any crazy vocab after that. Email me if you have any questions, and thank you for reading.